Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today from as far away as Canada and up in the northern parts of Arizona and maybe even beyond. So we're certainly glad to have you. My name is Joel Wakefield. I'm the Director of Professional Development here at MEC, and it is an honor to spend the morning with you. To get us started this morning, I'm going to pass the baton off to our superintendent, Mr. Donovan, who will share a little bit with you and get us started. So thank you for giving us your time this morning.
Thank you, Joel. Welcome, everybody. What a great opportunity here this morning for so many folks to get together from many different venues and places. As I currently see, there are about 49 of us on board this morning. And I would like to remind everybody that the title of this is exactly what we hope that it becomes, a think tank. An opportunity to perhaps not just sit and listen, but to engage in some conversation, not necessarily agree with everybody, and not necessarily walking away with, well, this is exactly what we're going to do or where we're going to go with this particular subject, but to cause thinking, to cause conversation, and to get us perhaps thinking about something a little bit more or a little bit differently than we have in the past, and to continue that conversation with other friends, colleagues, and family members. So welcome to MEC's Springs Think Tank. I think we have a good one in store for us this morning, and let's get started. Our first presenter this morning, or our guest, is Bill Symonds, William Symonds, who has been known to some of us, but may not be known to all of you. Bill Symonds is the director of the Global Pathways Institute at the Western Governors University, which is based in the Phoenix, Arizona area. He is a national leader for us in promoting career development and career literacy, and has worked with states and many organizations to develop improved models for providing high quality career development for all students. From 2014 until this past June of 2020, Bill served as director of the Global Pathways Institute at Arizona State University. While at ASU, Bill created a career mentor program in which retirees were recruited to work with low-income high school students on their educational plan, or often referred to as their ECAP plan. Prior to his work at ASU, Symonds helped launch the Pathways to Prosperity project at the Harvard Graduate School of Education in 2008. It's exciting to have Bill with us this morning to talk about the subject of careers, career pathways, and how do we engage more students. Thanks for being here, Bill, and welcome.
Well, thank you, Greg. I really appreciate that introduction. Let me say that I've spoken at these think tanks before at MEC, but I haven't done it by Zoom before. And one thing I always look forward to is coming out to MEC. They always serve a tremendous breakfast, but for some reason there's no breakfast available this morning, which is a real disappointment. It's also, at this point, I'd say I'm pretty much zoomed out. I'd much rather see everybody in person, and hopefully we can get back to that really soon. The other thing I'd like to say before I begin is that Joel Wakefield is going to be collecting any questions you have. Just put them in the chat box, and he's been instructed to interrupt me as questions come in. So we don't want to hold the questions until the end. If questions come up, please put them in the chat box, and then Joel will alert me that we have questions so we can discuss them as we go forward, make it more of an interactive presentation. We try to do that when we do the think tanks in person, but obviously we have to use the chat box today. So I'm going to share my screen here so we can get going. Okay, are we all set, Joel?
Looks wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so the title of today's presentation is Career Readiness for All, a Strategy for Reviving Education in Arizona. And the reason I'm using that title is that I think we're facing the greatest challenge in education we face during our lifetimes. And it's incumbent upon us as teachers and counselors and administrators to figure out how can we bring the schools back in a way that's going to re-engage students and really improve education in the state of Arizona. And that's what this presentation is all about. Let's start with a little bit more background about myself. You know, like many people, I've been on, well, like all people really, I've been on a career journey. My first career was journalism. I spent most of my career as a business journalist and got to talk to hundreds of CEOs and business leaders. And the thing all of them agreed on, and this was in many different industries across the entire spectrum of the economy, but what they all agreed on is it's the people that really make the difference, their employees. The most successful companies have managed to attract, retain, and train really high quality people. Those companies that fail often have failed at that task. So really, the workforce is the key to business success in almost every case. That message really made a deep impression on me. Then what happened is about 15 years ago now, many of you may know that print journalism took a nosedive. I doubt if many people on this call are getting a print newspaper delivered to your house. If you are, thank you, but that's pretty rare these days. And so what happened is that print journalism really went into a contraction. At that point, I left Business Week and was very fortunate to be invited to go to Harvard as a senior fellow. And the reason I went there was to study why hasn't No Child Left Behind worked. Now, I don't know how many of you remember when No Child Left Behind was passed. That was back in 2001. It was actually passed right after 9/11. This was something that President Bush had campaigned on, and it was a bipartisan act. It was passed by virtually unanimous consent. The two leaders really were President Bush and Ted Kennedy. Now that would be like Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell having a love fest today, and I don't expect that we're going to see that anytime soon. But that's what happened when they passed No Child Left Behind. And the promise was that if we do this, every child in America is going to be prepared for success. They're going to be proficient. Well, by the time I went to Harvard, it was clear that wasn't happening, and it's even more clear now. So the question is, why wasn't that happening? That led us to launch the Pathways to Prosperity project at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And we published a report called Pathways to Prosperity. And the key theme of that report is, if we're going to help students succeed, we have to offer multiple pathways, not just one way forward, not just the 4-year college. And so that's where the report was written and published. And then in 2014, I was invited by some business leaders, actually initially, to come out here to Arizona, and we launched the Global Pathways Institute at ASU. And you know, that was a business-led initiative. Our chairman was Doug Pruitt. I was the CEO of Stunt, by the way, which is a phenomenally successful company, a great model for success. They really believe in career preparation there. As a matter of fact, Richard Condit, who was at Stunt at that time, was the former state director, you know, assistant, whatever they called him in those days, but he was in charge of CTE at ADE for quite a while. So
they were really committed to this. They thought this would be a great idea. We launched that in 2014, and we started holding an annual conference called the Western Pathways Conference. The first one was held in 2014. And so then what happened is, during the pandemic, my position, like many positions in higher education, as a matter of fact, 500,000 of them, was eliminated because of the financial crisis created by the pandemic. However, Western Governors University approached me and asked me to join them, and I was delighted to do so. Now, a little bit about WGU. WGU is a nonprofit university, and the reason for the name is it was actually started by governors. It was the governor of Colorado and the governor of Utah a little bit over 20 years ago, and they decided, if we're going to meet the workforce needs of the future, we're going to need to change our approach to education, and we have to make it far more accessible to adults. And they came up with a crazy idea. And believe me, back then, this was before the year 2000, back then people thought they were insane. We're going to offer degrees online, and it's going to be totally virtual, and it's going to be competency-based. It's not seat-based. In other words, at many colleges and universities, whether or not you get credit for a course depends on whether you show up every day and attend that lecture, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. At Western Governors University, it doesn't work like that. It's based on, can you demonstrate the competencies needed to succeed in that career. So when it was started, there was enormous skepticism it was ever going to take off. However, the skeptics were wrong, and WGU is now the largest, really the largest online university in the United States. They have over 130,000 students, 100% virtual. So unlike other universities and colleges, WGU doesn't have any dorms. They don't have a football team. And so they were not disrupted by the pandemic. As a matter of fact, it was a more convenient place to go than most universities. So they've actually continued to grow during the pandemic. And by the way, WGU itself, I am based here. I did not move. It's a virtual organization, so you can live pretty much where you want to. I did not move, but WGU itself, their headquarters are in the Salt Lake City area. But they have people scattered all over the country, and they have students in all 50 states. So today, we're going to talk about, start with the challenge we're facing as educators, teachers, and counselors, and I think you can all understand that. Then we're going to talk about the fact that COVID has compounded the challenges that we faced before the pandemic. Now, as Greg Donovan and Deb Rader and some of the others who are on the call have heard me talk about this before, our system was failing many students long before March 2020, when the pandemic began. And those challenges haven't gone away. If anything, they've gotten a lot worse. And so what's the solution to that? How can we change this? My argument is that we can change that by putting the focus squarely on career literacy and development. And that's not a one-time thing. That's a process to help students understand better who they are, what their interests are, and what they want to do with their life. What's their pathway forward? This is a proven model for really engaging students, getting them excited about what they're doing in school and where they're going to go from here. And I think it's the perfect answer to the challenges we're facing today. And then we're going to talk about, what does high quality career development include? What's involved with that? What does it look like? And then we're going to talk about, how can we take action in Arizona? And during the presentation, I'm going to share some work done by the Education Leadership Group. That's a group of education leaders that came together during the pandemic to discuss career development in Arizona and how we can address it. And they've been kind enough. I was part of that group, and Angela Hardy was, as was Deb Rader and a number of other people on the call. They've been kind enough to allow me to share some of their slides. So we're going to be hearing about what they've concluded as well. It's all focused on the same subject. So let's talk about the crisis created by COVID. We've all been living with that. And I would say that COVID has been the most disruptive development in education since World War II. Now, in World War II, of course, very few of us were alive then, but basically the entire country was reoriented to the war effort. Even if you weren't called up to fight, you know, there were ration coupons. I know my relatives in New Hampshire had to have blackout curtains on their windows at night in case the Germans tried to bomb New Hampshire, which they never did. So everybody was really involved in that. It was very disruptive in terms of education, that's for sure. But World War II ended over 75 years ago. And we've never had this kind of disruption since then, until COVID hit last March. So, you know, the impact of COVID, I'm sure they're going to be studying this for years to come, but there's no question that millions of American students have fallen behind. They didn't keep up with and make the progress they were supposed to make. One key reason for this is that many lacked adequate access to the technology they needed for online learning. And also, we've got to recognize the fact that many students, particularly many low-income students, live in environments that are not conducive to online learning. They might live in very crowded environments where there isn't really a quiet place to study or use the internet. So it's just not conducive. And of course, it's really challenging for young students. One of my neighbors is a kindergarten teacher, and she's taught kindergarten for many years. She said, you know, you really can't teach kindergarten over Zoom. That's not going. You know, 5-year-olds are very active, and they're not going to just sit in front of a computer screen for hours on end, learning the alphabet or whatever it is. A second problem is that the fact that students haven't been in school has greatly increased student disengagement. not only from school, but they've been separated also from their friends and colleagues. It's created all kinds of mental health challenges. And I think for the purpose of our discussion today, it's also created a lot of, students feeling they're really not on any track at all, or they don't know what they're doing, and they're really lost. A third problem is the pandemic has greatly compounded the inequities that haunted education before COVID. Now, the other thing that's happened during this crisis, of course, is the whole awakening of the country really to the challenges of racism in the US. And we saw that very vividly with the George Floyd trial, to say the least. And the point is that there are tremendous inequities in our society. Many low-income minority students have not been well served, but all of those challenges have been greatly increased during the pandemic. And so the bottom line is our system was broken before COVID, and trying to return to where we were in February 2020 before the pandemic hit is not the solution. We really need to find a way to rejuvenate education, and that's what this is all about. So I would say we need to think broadly. It's not a matter of tinkering around the edges. We really need to come up with a new culture of education. And what is the purpose of education? For a long time, people felt the purpose of education was attaining a certain test score. That was really the goal of school. Let's get those test scores up there. I would say the purpose of education is actually preparing all of our students to lead successful lives as adults and to have a successful and fulfilling career. That's really the ultimate goal. The test scores are a means to that end, but they are not the end of education. And the problem is that since No Child Left Behind, our focus has been on standards-based reform and the goal of trying to ensure that all students are proficient. You might remember that when No Child Left Behind was passed, President Bush said, I think it was by 2013, every student in America was going to be up to grade level. But we've spent billions of dollars, and we simply haven't achieved that goal. As a matter of fact, last year, the results from the international PISA exams came out. Now, this is an international exam that measures student attainment and achievement around the advanced world, in advanced countries, not in developing countries. And what it found is the performance of American students has largely been stagnant over the last 20 years. Despite No Child Left Behind and the billions of dollars we poured into testing, there hasn't been a lot of movement in the needle. And the result is we continue to lag behind many other countries in these measures of achievement. We're sort of in the middle of the pack. So that has to improve. Now here in the US, we have what's called the Nation's Report Card, which reports on test scores around the country. And that has found that only about a third of students are proficient in reading, and that student progress has stalled over the last decade, and that racial achievement gaps have actually grown. So I think at this point, we have to recognize the fact the goals of No Child Left Behind simply were not achieved. We didn't get there. That solution did not work. It didn't deliver what it was promising, because the goal it was trying to deliver was 100% proficiency. And we simply didn't get there. But the failures of that approach go way beyond test scores, because while we've spent billions and billions of dollars on testing and trying to improve test scores, we've given very short shrift to career development. Why are you in school? Excuse me, and what are you going to do with your life? And as a result, many, many students leave high school without a clear plan for their future. And before the pandemic, I had the opportunity to speak to Arizona's county school superintendents, who are one of the most dedicated group of educators you're going to meet from all over the state, what do we have, 16 counties or whatever. And all of them testified about how many of the students they see, whether it's in Yavapai County or whatever, leaving school without a plan for where they're going to go. They're sort of just drifting. And they can see that firsthand, that we're failing to equip them with a plan where they can leave and they know what they're going to do. And meanwhile, many students have been convinced there's only one road to heaven. And that one road to heaven, of course, is to go to college and get a college degree. The reality is, though, that we need multiple pathways to success. So the mantra that we've been using in this country is that college is seen as the only true pathway to success. Now, Many people believe the only true pathway to success is actually go to a four-year college. That view is beginning to shift. More people, fortunately, are beginning to recognize that community colleges provide a great pathway to many great careers. But that approach has really infected our schools. And the view is that the goal of high school is to prepare students to attend a four-year college. And that means that academics is number one, and CTE takes the second place, to say the least. And many people look down on CTE as something that's for students who aren't smart enough to go to a four-year college. And community and technical colleges have also been disabused. Now, that is not only inaccurate, it's done enormous damage to many of our students. And the reality is that a multiple pathways approach actually is far more effective at engaging students and helping them to learn. And
there's three reasons for this. Research clearly demonstrates that if students are studying something practical,
relevant, that leads directly to a career, they're far more likely to be engaged in their studies, and therefore they're going to learn more. And by the way, that's been borne out. I came to Arizona from Massachusetts, and my son went to what they call a vocational technical high school in Massachusetts. That is a four-year public high school. It's sort of like West MEC on steroids. It's an all-day high school. They actually have a football team there, and every student has a career major. And when that model was developed, people said, well, that's not going to work. You're spending too much time on CTE. What have the actual results been? The graduation rate of those high schools is higher than other high schools in Massachusetts. And by the way, Massachusetts is usually ranked number one in high school education in America. So you've got a very high bar to begin with, but the graduation rate of the students in those schools is higher because everybody has a career major. Secondly, that approach, that focus on career education leads to higher attainment. And that's really been borne out in Switzerland, which has some of the highest attainment rates in the world. And in Switzerland, 2 out of every 3 high school students are involved in apprenticeships, which is preparing them for careers in the Swiss economy. And of course, having an education that's grounded in career preparation, whether it's welding, whether it's biotech, whatever it might be, provides a much better pathway to employment and getting jobs. So there's really a lot of reasons why we want to move in that direction. Meanwhile, because we haven't done that, our system is imposing a huge burden on young people and their families, on educational institutions and the governments that pay for them, and on companies and on the broader economy. Let's look at that a little more detail. And our system, I would say, is burdened by what I call the 3 I's. The first I is that our system is very inefficient. We encourage almost all students to take one road, the road to the 4-year college. And we know here in Arizona and around the country, most students don't go to a 4-year college. Because we encourage so many students to go there, many go even though they are not well prepared to succeed at college. And the result is that many of them take on debt and end up dropping out. And so we have the world's highest college dropout rate. Meanwhile, student loan debt has gone through the roof. They've talked about addressing that. I don't think they've come up with a solution to it yet, but the amount of student debt exceeds every other form of debt in the US except for mortgages. So we have a very inefficient system. Secondly, our system is very ineffective, and it's ineffective because it's not geared to what the actual needs of the economy are. And we only need so many philosophy majors, but we need a lot of people that have the practical skills to help build our business economy. And so many surveys have been done of CEOs. 90% of CEOs feel this is a very serious problem in the US. Meanwhile, because we haven't focused on career development, Gallup has studied employee engagement for decades. And they say that only about 1/3 of employees are actually engaged in their job. Now, what does that mean? That means they come to work, they're eager to go to work, they buy into the mission of the organization like WestMet, and they want to help us succeed. Now, you would hope that everybody would be on that page, but actually they say that only a third of employees are actually engaged in their jobs. And that is really a sad commentary because we spend more time working. The average person spends more time working than doing anything else, I think, except sleeping. So, you know, it really dominates your life. And if you're not satisfied with it, that's a very sad commentary. And the third I is that our system is very inequitable. And here in Arizona, the majority of students are students of color. White students are minority. Now, you wouldn't know that from looking at our political leaders and some of the other leaders in Arizona, but the reality is in our classrooms, the majority of the students are students of color. And those gaps in academic achievement and economic opportunity pose a real threat to the future of the Arizona economy going forward. So let's look a little bit more at the challenges in Arizona. You know, I talked before about the fact that we didn't meet these test score goals. And these are some recent statistics from AZ Merit that 44% of third graders scored proficient or above on English language arts and reading. And 41% of eighth graders were determined to be able to succeed in high school math. Now, you know, earlier in my career, I spent a couple of years working with the State Board of Education on how we could expand the definition of what constitutes success in high school and how we grade our high schools in the ADAF system. And I remember clearly attending one board meeting where they spent the entire board meeting talking about test scores, and the question was raised, if 50% of the students are proficient, can we call that an A school? Now, I don't know what the definition of A is at West MEC, but I doubt if Greg would accept 50% as a definition of an A performance for his stuff. But that's what they were arguing about. That's because, as you can see here, the test scores are so low. So we've got a real problem as far as that goes. And this slide here just shows the demographics of Arizona. So you can see that only 39% of the students in our schools, not in our leadership, but in our schools, only 39% are white kids, 45% are Latino, Latinx students, and then we have quite a few Black and Native American students as well. And you can see in this chart that if you look at the test scores of the Hispanic, Native American, Black students, they lag well below the national averages. That shows you know, the achievement gap in Arizona. And the other aspect of this problem is that we have one of the worst ratios of counselors to students in the entire US. We have not prioritized counseling in this country. And that has had a really concrete impact. Only about half of students in Arizona high schools go straight on to college. And we remain well below the national average in terms of the amount of degree attainment. And you know, people who study Arizona education have found a number of schools, high schools in Arizona, where not a single student goes on to a four-year university. Again, that goes back to the issue of equity. There's other schools, obviously, you know, for example, BASIS, I think they say 100% of their students go to a four-year college. So there's tremendous disparities in terms of how that works out. Now, what happened during the pandemic, as I mentioned, is that a group of educational leaders said, why don't we come together and talk about how we're going to meet this challenge? And that's, the group was called the Education Leadership Group. It was led by Jim Zaharis. Many of you know Jim. He was a longtime superintendent in Mesa, worked for Greater Phoenix Leadership, and also Richard Condit. And Richard Condit, of course, was the state CTE director for many years and then worked for SUNT. And here, these slides show some of the people involved, and there was very strong participation from West MEC. Stephen Walsh was involved. I think Greg attended a session or two. John Mulcahy, who retired in January, was very involved in this as well. And many other organizations were involved as well. Angela is on the screen here from ADE, was part of this, along with other leaders from ADE. ABEC was involved, Deb Rader's group. We had representatives from the, and also some leaders from the. We met once a month, basically, to talk about these issues. Of course, all of this had to be done by Zoom. And so one of the questions we addressed is, how is Arizona serving career development for students? Are we meeting this need? And we looked at it in 4 cohorts: middle school, high school, community college, and university. Now, for the purpose of this presentation, I'm just going to focus on what's going on in middle school and high school, because we're really talking today about secondary education in Arizona. And so if we look at middle school, we found that there were some enormous gaps in middle schools. Finding the resources and the people to provide career exploration and awareness to students is a real challenge, and many schools are not doing that. We found there's no standard language and resources to equip students to develop. And by the way, my belief, and certainly shared by those in ELG, is that every student in Arizona should leave 8th grade with a high school plan. And what does that mean? They've looked at what their options are in high school, and they've decided what they're going to do about that. So this is an anecdote, but I think it's very representative. During the pandemic, my wife felt that the barbershop I was going to didn't have adequate safety standards. You know, it was very inexpensive, but you know, it was run by men, and they weren't the best on the hygiene, I guess. So I started going to the place she went. Sort of female hairstylist. I started talking to her. She has a daughter who's a freshman in high school, and I said, "Well, how does she like it?" She said, "Well, she doesn't like it at all. You know, she wants to go into the beauty industry, hairstyling, etc., and they don't offer a single course in that." And I said, "Well, you know, have you ever heard of the C-test?" I didn't know what I was talking about. No exposure to that at all. And finally, I got her to talk to the counselor. The counselor knew something about it, and now they've been connected with EVIT. They live in an area that's served by EVIT, and hopefully she's going to get enrolled in a program out there. But the point is, she went all the way through middle school without any exposure or awareness that this existed. And I think that happens far too often. Obviously, you know, the fact she's interested in that, she should be in that program. Now, she might discover that it's not what she thought it was. She might decide she's not interested in it after all, which is fine. That's an important discovery. The point is, she's not exploring that at all. And what her plan was, before I talked to her mother, is when she graduated from high school, she was going to pay a lot of money to go to a private school to learn about this. And, you know, those schools are pretty expensive, whereas going to West MEC or EVIT is actually free. It's paid for by the public. And so those are some of the challenges that we face. And our observations were, first of all, we need to really focus on encouraging earlier career awareness among middle schoolers. And in the panel later on, Deb Rader's going to talk about the work that ABEC is doing to accomplish just that goal. We need to reduce the barriers for teachers to participate in working with their students on this. And we also need to provide high quality professional development for teachers, counselors, and others, because this has not really been a key part of the middle school experience. And by the way, while we're doing all this, I think that the state should mandate that all 8th graders complete a high school plan before they leave 8th grade. Now, the other thing is that when ECAP was mandated, of course, there was no money. You know, you're going to do this, but we're not going to have any resources to achieve that goal. And we have to change that. We have to put money into career development. So summing up, in middle school, we're really not meeting the challenge at all. Very few students are getting any high quality career development. Now, what about at the high school? There we found that, again, that we don't have adequate resources to provide students what they really need in terms of career exploration, work experiences, and developing their pathways. And we have a severe shortage of staffing in our schools. And by the way, this is not just career awareness and career exploration, it's also in our CTE programs. Many of our CTE programs don't have adequate staffing and are not fully staffed the way they should be. One of the great examples is in HVAC. So I think HVAC, you know, this is probably the best market in the entire world for HVAC. You know, if you're going to live in Arizona, you certainly need air conditioning. And yet we have very, very few programs, less than you can count on the fingers of one hand, programs in HVAC, even though if you go to work in HVAC, you're definitely going to be in the middle class right away. Those are not poorly paid jobs. And I've talked to the guys who come to our house to service our air conditioners, and many of them say when they get home at night, the phone is, they've got messages there from people calling up trying to recruit them to come to another company. You know, I can't think of a better place in the world to work in HVAC. Maybe Saudi Arabia, I don't know. But this is certainly right at the top, and yet we don't have the programs. And so we do have a requirement that students complete their ECAP before they graduate from high school. But as you know, in many cases, that's just a check off. It's not taken seriously. Many schools haven't devoted the resources to that to really help students achieve those goals. And we certainly have not created the culture in our schools that focus on career development. Now, the school my son went to, called Minuteman, which, by the way, Minuteman is in Lexington, Mass, and has been visited from people as far away as China. It's considered an international model of how this can be done. Every student, their first semester there in 9th grade, had to go through all 20 career majors, and they spent 3 days in each career major. The first one was learning what's the program of study if you're going to landscaping, for example. Secondly, hands-on experience. So in the auto body program, they might take a muffler off. And thirdly, what are the career pathways? Where is this going to take you? In landscaping, believe it or not, they had the guy who's in charge of the grounds at Fenway Park. Now, if you're Catholic, that's like working at the Vatican. I mean, it doesn't get any better than Fenway Park. This guy was in charge of the grounds at Fenway Park, and he had graduated from Minuteman High School. And of course, that's a very well-paid job, to say the least. Then at the end of that, you chose a career major. You spent the next 3.5 years on that major. When students graduated, they didn't just call out your name and you walk across the stage like most of us have seen. They actually announced what your career major was and where you're going to go from there. And so one of my son's classmates actually was a carpentry major, and they announced that he had just been hired by This Old House, which is based in Boston, PBS. And not only was he going to get paid well, he was going to get a full slate of benefits, and they were going to pay him to go to college and get a business degree so he could launch his own business. So we have a long way to go in high school as well. So while I was at ASU, we pulled together a national group of organizations to talk about what is high quality career development and how can we provide that. And we had many of the leading national organizations involved in this: Advanced CTE, ACTE. We had the Council of Two-State School Officers. We had the Education Commission of the States. We also had political leaders like the National Governors Association and the business community involved. And we worked together to put this report out, which is available and which you can read. We can share that through Joel if you're interested. And the vision we stated in the report is that we are committed to making career readiness the first priority of American education. As we've discussed, right now it's sort of on the back burner. And we said we believe that providing all learners with high quality career development services and technology will help ensure that they secure productive employment and career as efficiently and cost effectively as possible. So it really develops that ineffective nature of our current system. This will also better meet the needs of employers for a skilled workforce, elevate the dignity of all work, and help more young people achieve the American dream. So in a nutshell, this explains why we think this approach has such promise. And so how are you going to provide high quality career development? We came up with what we call the solutions framework with 5 pillars. And I'll go into a little more detail, but the first one is prioritizing career planning. That really is central. Every student needs to engage in that. Secondly, we need to provide professional career advising, not as an afterthought, but we need people actually in charge of this work. Thirdly, we need to emphasize applied and work-based learning. Now, obviously, that's something that's taken a real hit during the pandemic, but we need to get far more students out there into the real world, getting some experience. Fourthly, we need to provide high-quality career development technology. And I'm going to talk more about that here in Arizona. Pipeline AZ is meeting that need. And then we need to ensure accountability, which comes back to how is the state ensuring that students are meeting this? And that would include requiring students to produce a high school plan while they're finishing 8th grade, and also to make sure that all students complete a meaningful ECAP plan and providing the funding to help that happen. So looking at this in a little more detail, prioritizing career planning. As I've said, all students should develop a high school plan by the end of 8th grade, laying out their intended program of study. And that means that while they're in middle school, they're going to learn about what are the options here in Arizona. What does West MEC actually offer? What can they do with that? And how are they going to be prepared if they take advantage of those programs? And also, all students should develop a personal career plan before graduating from high school. And that means when they leave high school, they know what they're going to do. Now, right now, the average student waits about 10 years before enrolling in community college. So they graduate from high school, they wander around, they get various jobs. They finally figure out, if I'm going to make a decent living, I'm going to have to get some more skills in education. And that's when they say, hey, I'll go to a community college and tackle that. But they're waiting on an average of 10 years to do that. They're in their late 20s by the time they finally do that. I think if all students had a ECAP and really worked on it, you'd see far more younger students going in that direction and be prepared a lot sooner. And same thing at the post-secondary level, that developing the personal career plan should be the starting point. And we want to get away from the system, which is still true today, where some students are in their senior year of college and finally go to the career office and say, what am I going to do now? Which is obviously waiting a long time to address that question. The next point is providing professional career advising. And the key point here is that we need people in charge of this effort. We can't just hope it's going to happen. We have to figure out who's going to lead this effort. They have to be trained and certified to do this. And their job is to make sure the school is embracing career development, but also to reach out to the business community and broader community to get them involved and provide unbiased information. And I believe strongly in the dignity of work. In other words, we need to get away from the idea that you're only successful if you're a doctor and lawyer, and other jobs really don't have any value. That simply is not true. And if COVID taught us anything, it taught us the incredible role of our healthcare workforce and of our frontline workers in grocery stores, et cetera, who are going out there to make sure that people get food even during the pandemic. And I'm sure you have seen stories of the tremendous toll that COVID took on these frontline workers. We've lost almost 600,000 Americans. Many of them were people working in these fields. So again, we need to uphold the dignity of work. And for example, working with our elderly population in nursing homes and assisted livings, that is not a well-paid profession. We have not prioritized that in terms of paying those people well, but the work is desperately needed. Anybody who's had an older parent deal with that knows exactly what I'm talking about. We need to uphold the dignity of that work, and in my opinion, pay them for it as well. Then we go to work-based learning, which I think should be an integral part of education. As I've talked about this over the years, one time I went to the National School Board Association, school boards from all over the US, had about 300 people in the audience. And there weren't any kids in there. I mean, these are elected school board members. They're middle-aged for the most part. And I said, well, how many of you had a job in high school? And we had about 300 people in the room. Every hand except one went up. And I turned to him and I said, what's wrong with you? How come you didn't have a job? He said, well, actually, I had a lawn mowing business. I didn't raise my hand because I wasn't working for anybody else. I launched my own business. I was mowing lawns. So he was obviously working and making money. I had a job in high school. I was stocking baby food. And it was really, when I looked at that, really a lot of responsibility. I was responsible. I grew up in a pretty small town in Minnesota, and I was responsible for making sure the baby food was adequately stocked in the 8 different grocery stores in that town. That's a lot of responsibility to give somebody who's only 17 years old. And they were counting on me to make sure that was done. So, when I was growing up, work-based learning was a part of our education. We might not have been getting it in the school building, but we had a job and we were learning about why it's important to show up on time, what a good run business looks like, and some of those grocery stores were not well run. So I also learned what a bad one looks like. And you're learning about the entire workforce. Today, many students don't have that experience. They're not working, they're not getting out there, and we need to change that. We need to get students back out there and really get them experience in the workforce. And as we're doing that, we need to establish rigorous quality standards for these internships, apprenticeships, and other forms of work-based learning. And we also need to encourage students to earn industry certification. So the final point is technology. Technology is really the gateway to today's labor market. People looking for jobs now are going to go online, and through the job portals, et cetera, and see what's available. And as part of our education system, we need to ensure all students have access to this technology and learn how to use it. And we need to also engage the business community in providing up-to-date labor market information. Now, here in Arizona, we're very fortunate that Pipeline AZ was created to meet these needs. Now, Pipeline AZ started out by addressing the adult workforce, which makes sense. I mean, the people actually already in the workforce or trying to get in the workforce. They are now working very closely to bring this down into the middle and high school years. And we want to integrate that into what I'm going to talk about this. So at ELG, the conclusion reached was that we believe that talent development is the foundation of economic development, and our future will be defined by collective action. And the three goals they defined were: we need equitable access to career exploration, we need a singular shared technology infrastructure, which Pipeline AZ is working to provide, and we need a feedback loop between industry and education. And Joel is going to share these slides, but you can click on that link, elg.pipelineaz.com, and volunteer to get involved in these discussions going forward. And by the way, they would be happy to come out to your school or your organization or whatever it is and do a more in-depth presentation about all of this. And here's the vision that ELG established, a very bold vision to make Arizona the national showcase of workforce innovation. And with the premier statewide career exploration, talent development, training, and employment support solution. So that's a very bold goal. We have a long way to go to reach that. And this is how they define the career journey. A little bit different than when I talked about the same basic idea. You start with career awareness, move into exploration, then you moved into development, which would include CTE, and get ready to move into the workforce. So I'd like to conclude with how can we actually accomplish this in Arizona? And this is a graphic sort of depicting how we might change things to make this happen. And you'll notice the first thing on this graphic is School Career Development Advisors. Now that's a role that's been created by the National Career Development Association. That organization is focused 100% on career development. They've been around for over 100 years. And working with us, they developed this idea of let's recruit and train people to be career development advisors. Their role is to oversee this whole process in schools and districts. They're going to be in charge of it. And under them, you can see we've got people leading middle school exploration, like the work APEC is doing. We have advanced career technology. And in the case of Arizona, that's going to increasingly be provided by Pipeline AZ. Mentors can play a key role. And as Greg mentioned, when I was at ASU, we created an adult career mentor program, which is incredibly successful. That had to be shut down during COVID because we had retirees working face-to-face with high school students, and obviously they wouldn't allow that during COVID. But the impact of that would bring tears to your eyes because we were working in high schools with students with a lot of problems. Central High School was one. Many of those students had parents who were in the prison system. So they're not going to get a lot of career advice at home. And this is where the mentors really came into play. They had all had successful careers. They were able to guide them and lead them in terms of developing a career plan. And then we need to include work-based learning. So the School Career Development Advisor is coordinating all of this work. The end goal is that all students graduate with a personal career plan. And notice they say personal. It's not one size fits all. It's figuring out who you are and what the best way forward is for you. So this is a brochure. You can't really read it right now, but when you see the slides, you can take a more in-depth look about the School Career Development Advisor training and program. And it ends with a certification where you're certified as a School Career Development Advisor. Certification is primarily intended in the first instance for people who are already certified counselors. So this is an additional certification you can earn that would establish you as a School Career Development Advisor. And talks about the objectives of this. And there are two objectives. One is to oversee career development, career advising within the school itself and making sure that all students are getting access to that. The second is working with business and industry to get them directly involved in this process and to create a lot more opportunities for work-based learning. So the School Development Advisor is both inward focused, working with the teachers at the school and counselors, and outward focused, working with local business and industry to get them really involved. And by the way, the vision here is to get the entire community involved in preparing the next generation for success. So how do we describe the role of the SCDA? I would describe it, what we're trying to do is create a football coach for career development. Now, in Arizona, virtually every high school has a football coach, and almost every high school wants to go to the state championships, right? That's one of the most important things any high school can do, is go to the state football championship. However, we don't have people in a similar role leading career development, and this would fill that gap. And the SCDAs would not do this work by themselves. Rather, they would create a whole community. They would collaborate with teachers and counselors to prioritize career development, and they would coordinate the implementation and monitoring of a holistic career education program. They would work closely with Pipeline AZ and the Education Leadership Group to ensure students have access to the most up-to-date labor market information. They would cultivate key contacts with local business and industry and would scale up opportunities for work-based learning. And so the end goal is to make career development a central focus in our schools and to inspire all students to develop personal career plans. Now, I've talked about this for a while in Arizona. I know there's tremendous interest, and Joel is going to be sending out a survey in which you'll have an opportunity to say, hey, I'd like to volunteer for this. I'm interested in going through the training, or I think my school should do this. And we'd love to get your feedback on that. But I think another thing is, this is not set in concrete. This is a living, breathing model. And what we want to do is create a learning community among those people who go through the training. How are we going to improve career development? So it's going to keep improving as we move forward. It's not one and done. It's an ongoing process. So this would start with training. And we've been in touch with the National Career Development Association about this. So for the first training, they would send a certified trainer out here to Arizona, out to West MEC to do the training. And the former president of NCDA, for example, has already volunteered. He's interested in coming out here. He is a master trainer, and he's leads the counseling program at a big district in Connecticut. So he has lots of experience. This training is designed for those people who already have a lot of exposure to, they're counselors, they understand career development. So it's a 40-hour course, and that would be done in a hybrid approach. We'd have some training done in person, which is really important to meet the instructor and learn who the other students are. The rest would be done online. And the syllabus would include covering how do you use career development to transform the school culture and curriculum. How do you lead high quality career services within a school? How do you make better use of Pipeline AZ? And how do you build better relationships with local business and the broader community? And at the end of that, you would be certified as a school career development advisor. And this training could be done in a month, maybe 2 months. It's not all that taxing a program, and part of it would be done in person. By the way, those who are interested in getting involved but have not worked as a counselor, et cetera, they would also need to take facilitating career development, which is a course that NCDA has been offering for decades. And that course takes about 120 to 150 hours. So you need to do that and then do the SCDA training. So that's another option. And by the way, this is not something that's never been tried. This training's already been provided in South Dakota. I helped them get that going up there with the leadership of the governor, Governor Dugard. Right now, they're working with a Native American community to offer this in Oklahoma, which actually has a larger population, I think, of Native Americans than we do in Arizona, amazingly enough. I'd also cite the state of North Carolina, where the governor said we really need to prioritize career development, and they created a position called Career Development Coordinator, sort of the same idea as the School Career Development Advisor. And they've now got hundreds of those people working in middle and high schools. And their job is to make sure that students are really pursuing career development. So the next steps are that we're hoping to offer the initial SCDA training at West MEC and include both West MEC counselors as well as those participants from select West Valley districts, maybe even beyond that. And so the first step is to identify people who are interested in possibly getting involved. And the survey you're getting from Joel will allow you to indicate if you're interested. Then we need to line up an NCDA instructor to come to Arizona to offer the training. We've already got Mark Danaher has already volunteered to do that. There's others available as well. Determine the ideal time for the training session. Then we would recruit people, form the class, and they would go through the training. And as part of the training, we would be working with Pipeline AZ. Now, one of the most exciting things about this, I've talked with NCDA, I know those people well. They are also going to be offering a training program this fall to certify one or more people from Arizona to become trainers. What that would mean is that going forward, we wouldn't have to bring somebody into Arizona to offer this training. We could do it right here. We could recruit people here to become trainers, and they could train people around the state. And the goal here is to launch something that can then expand statewide. Now, as I say, this has happened in North Carolina. They've got hundreds of these people working in middle schools and high school, and it's really transformed the state. And it's been going for more than one governor. I can't remember the name of the governor who launched it, but his successor didn't kill it. Sometimes governors come in and say, everything my predecessor did was bad, and we're going to kill all of that, and we're starting over. He actually kept that program going, and they're very committed to it. And that's what we want to do here in Arizona, is really get this going in every school, so that every school helps awaken students to what their potential is and how they can best pursue that. So I'm wrapping up here with some questions. I think Joel has provided these so that you can see them. And this will give us more than enough to talk about in the breakout rooms. How is your school and how have your students been impacted by COVID? We could talk all day about that, I'm sure. Secondly, how do you think a focus on career literacy and career development could help revitalize education? You support this vision? And thirdly, are you interested in getting involved in the SCDA training and or getting your school or district involved? So I think that'll give us more than enough to discuss. In the breakout sessions, I'd really like to thank you for your attention. Joel, do we have any questions right now?
Thank you, William, for your time this morning. Excellent work. I appreciate all the information you've given us. There are a couple questions that we will make sure we cover appropriately going forward regarding the training, and so some of that will come out. We won't need to cover them now. Okay. Participants would love to give you, if you could take a moment and just go down to your reactions at the bottom, and if you really enjoyed this time, just give a virtual thumbs up or a party hat, whichever you'd like, to thank Bill for his time this morning and all that he's given us. Thank you for everything. We're going to be sending you to breakout groups, and your discussion leaders have these 3 questions. As Bill said, we could talk forever on number 1. Really would like you to think about question number 2, put your emphasis on this idea of career literacy and what that would look like as we revitalize education in the post-pandemic era. Your survey at the end will have question 3, so that we will catch you up to that, get you involved in that as you complete the survey. So Patrick's got your breakout groups ready. You have a breakout group leader that will then take you. He'll open the groups. You will click the join button, and then at that point, you'll have about 15 minutes to discuss these topics with your breakout leader. Thank you so much, Bill, and look forward to hearing you in your breakout groups.
Thank you.
Hi, Deborah. This is Judy Balo. How are you? I'm from ADE-CTE.
Oh, hi. How are you doing?
We used to work a lot on the CTE assessment stuff way back when, and I'm still working in it. Good to see you.
Well, good to see you.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Hi, Vicki.
Hey,
Hello.
America. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks.
Good.
Are you the group leader, Vicki?
America is actually.
Really? That's a surprise?
Is that a surprise? Let me double check here.
Surprise!
Okay, just a minute. I'm looking at my
I can be
list.
the group leader, no problem.
I'm just looking at my list here. If you don't mind, that would be great, or I can as well.
No, no problem at all. So
All
let's do
right.
some quick introductions, everybody. My name is America Segura. I'm the Career Services Coach at the Northwest Campus. And if Abigail, do you mind going next?
Sure. I'm Abigail Flister. I work at the Pendergast Elementary School District, and I'm the coordinator for staff development.
Nice. Deb?
I'm Deb Rader, and I'm Vice President of the Arizona Business and Education Coalition, and I lead our career exploration and development project statewide.
Nice. And I'm sorry I didn't catch the last name. I mean, the first name.
Mine, Deb.
The next individual, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Maybe you're speaking to me. I'm
Yeah,
Judy Balo. I am manager and team lead at the Arizona Department of Education, Career and Technical Education, and work specifically with our CTE programs, assessment, and career literacy. Angela Hardy, who is speaking next, is on my team, and I'm basically here to support her. But obviously, this is a big piece of work on in our team, in our agency.
Nice. Thank you. Vicki?
And I'm Vicki Godby, and I also work with West MEC in the professional development department. So glad you're all here.
Nice. And I think we all know William. Or Bill.
I go by Bill, by the way. I'm going to be, they're going to take me out of this at some point. They're going to have me shifting around to the different groups. So I'm just going to listen to a little bit for what you say. If I disappear, don't take any offense.
No problem. So I think we had a great presentation. There was a lot of information, and this is like legitimately the group that probably of everybody's alley. We're probably all saying, "Amen." Yes, this is correct. So, but let's get to the first questions. How do you think this school year has been impacted with COVID? I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced something. Anybody want to share?
I will. So I work for an elementary district. We have K through 8. And so, it's one of those things where there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons, right? So teaching 25 5-year-olds on Zoom mostly is, no, come back. You don't need goldfish right now. You're fine. Right. And then they you're going potty. No, don't take that with you. Right. And it's super fun. Our district is in an area that was highly affected by COVID, and our numbers were always very high. So we were actually completely virtual 100%. From March to March. And so us going back to school has been an interesting thing. And I think that we're doing very well. But, one of the things that was a huge takeaway for me is we have some kids that just flourished in online school. And then you've got some kids who don't. And, it makes me feel sad that going back to school is actually going to take that away from some of those kids who are finally like, this is what I needed. And that we don't necessarily have a way to differentiate appropriately in grade school for that. And that's a conversation. I think one of the positives for me as adult education, I have never been so popular in my district since COVID started. They would teach me stuff. I was like, yes, we got you. Right. And so it just became this wonderful thing where I got to see our adult learners just grow exponentially because the need was so in front of them. And, people struggled and persevered, and you saw grit, and you saw collaboration, and, and things that are just in a way that was really uplifting. And I felt really grateful that I was able to be a part of that during my lifetime, right? It's a major educational change. So I think I maybe have more mixed feelings than the teachers do. But I know that they're excited to be back, and we're excited that they're there. And I'm really looking forward to moving into the future in a new way with a new skill set. And so that's the end of my TED Talk today. Sorry.
Thank you, Abigail. I don't think anybody else is front-facing students this year in the group. I, as a career coach, had the opportunity also. We had our kids part of the year. Obviously, last March, the whole end of the school year didn't finish right. And then until September, our kids came back in person. I had the opportunity to help out the teachers as a career coach. They kind of pull you in. Hey, I need somebody, can you do resumes? Can you talk about communication? And elevator pitch, all those type of things I've been able to jump in. But I would say it's been demoralizing to see high school kids on Zoom. It's just blank faces, stares, no back and forth. So I definitely had empathy for my teachers. I was like, it's so depressing. I would finish my little presentation. I'm like, oh, I just felt so depressed because it was just blank stares. There was no communication. A lot of my kids were new. They didn't know each other. You know what I mean? How are they going to meet each other in a Zoom classroom from different high schools? They didn't have maybe 8th grade experience or 9th grade experience. They were brand new to each other. So it was very difficult. My seniors, on the other hand, had a great, trying to get them to calm down was still kind of the same. I go to my auto class, they're talking about cars. That's what they do. So it's been an experience. I'm definitely loving having them in person. Definitely the stress on the teachers has been, it's been a lot. But I go into the classrooms later on. I'm like, hey, so what did we learn this year? Dealing with ambiguity. You can adapt to change. Some days from one day to the next. I said, add that to your resume because a lot of employers are going to like that. Also, you're not familiar with software that maybe last year you wouldn't have been familiar with. You can negotiate yourself around Zoom, Google Hangouts, all these things that you're being introduced to. So I try to help the students and the teachers. I say, same thing, put that on your resume, teachers. You know what I mean? You need to add some stuff on there too. I definitely feel the students have been impacted in a way that they haven't had those things consistently given to them that we do over 2 years or the 1 year of their program. Resumes, interview prep, elevator pitch, everything kind of is done over the course of the year. So it's given to them piece by piece. And then it's like this last semester, everything, waterfall, I'm just going to shove it all down the throat because I got to get it to you versus being able to give it to them over the course of 2 years. So that's my little TED Talk.
I think that's, really an interesting point too, even as we talk about the career exploration project that we do, with limited online time when they were on Zoom, an abbreviated day, a lot of the elective type things or career exploration things were done away with or put on hold. And so that was a real struggle for us to make sure that we could continue to expose students to the things that really connect them to their education. So I think that has been a real challenge and even demoralizing, I think, to think that students really were losing some of those real enrichment opportunities. And maybe that's why that glazed look, right? When you're just doing core subjects online and all of the things that make school so binding and important and happy were kind of taken out of the equation for a while, I think, or what we were seeing.
I agree with you. Just that connection, the human connection of just talking to a friend and getting tips and tricks was gone. And 8 hours on Zoom, it's tough for us to be on there 2 hours. So we got to go back to the next one. I'll meet you guys in the second session.
Nice to see you all again.
Teleported back to the main group. We appreciate the dialogue that's gone on. We're going to take a quick summary of some of the groups. We won't call on all the groups. Just get a quick report out. Then we'll take about a 5-minute break, a stretch break, which we've learned in this environment is essential. So we'll make sure we take a quick break. But let's just call on a few groups. And if you could just share 30 seconds, a minute, maybe about a question 2 as you think about the value of career literacy in this re-engaging of education. Diane, we're going to start with you. You or someone from your group share out.
Well, I'm happy to share. And if I forget anything, please group chime in. But I had a really great group. We were talking about just the fact that we need to revive the idea of the dignity of work. Sometimes people think of the word work as a bad word, but it's not. The dignity of it. And then we talked about the rewards of it and how career literacy just ties to, we just need to keep reminding people it's good. At the end of a day, when you've worked hard and accomplished something, or even the accomplishment could be that new car or that house that you own. So I think just reminding our students that there is dignity in that work and effort, and that there is reward to that.
Great conversation starters as we work with students. Excellent dialogue. Thank you very much. Jason, you had great dialogue in your group. Jason Croft.
Yeah, I was in with Maya and we got talking about little bit on just how we're converting or starting with bringing that information to the students there to start the career development. But then we get into in the high school setting, why are our kids so high? Because they're testing and they're putting these things in, and we're seeing that that wear down on the students has been going on for years, but now we're starting to see it in our teachers, how they're worn down by the testing. We just need to make some changes how we're presenting that, giving our teachers the opportunity to do some different things in their class so that they can be revived and bring that to the kids as well.
All right, thank you. Excellent job. As you think about the emphasis that's been put on testing and how it impacts many people and the importance of other ideas to think about. All right, April, Tyrell, had some rich dialogue in your group. If you just want to share a couple things out.
Thanks, Joel. We had some great discussion. It kind of covered a few topics. We talked about the interesting point that we recognize that during COVID, some of our students actually went to work. They either created their own businesses or they had jobs for the first time, and that was a positive thing. We moved on to talk about, we talked about the ECAP process a little bit and how in theory that's a great process, but one of the frustrations as a counselor is we had so many students that it kind of became something that we had to check a box to make sure that we completed for each student, rather than getting back and going to revisit students' plans and goals and even share those with parents. So that's something that that training, that SCDA training, would probably address and kind of help with that effort. But we just, right now, students haven't had the resources to be able to do that. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Excellent dialogue. And we'll catch up on some of the other groups as we go to work through some of the topics that Angela will have with us. Well, let's take about a 5-minute break. It is 9:42. We'll come back at 9:47. And at that point, Angela from Arizona Department of Education will be sharing some of the exciting work that she has been doing with others on this topic of career literacy. We'll see you all in 5 minutes. Well, welcome back, everyone. We're certainly glad to have you back. Hopefully you enjoyed your brief break to possibly get up and stretch. And we're looking forward to listening in on some of the things that Angela has to share. So let me briefly introduce Angela. She was very modest in many of the things she's done, but as many of you know, Angela Hardy, she began her teaching career as a biology and anatomy and physiology teacher in the Deer Valley Unified School District. After 8 wonderful years of teaching, she transitioned into career and technical education as an engineering teacher. She was fortunate to receive some specialized training as an engineering teacher at San Jose State University in engineering. And then as an engineering teacher, she was very successful, as I personally witnessed how she engaged students, and especially some of the boys, in active learning and many discussions about their post-high school dreams and careers. One of her favorite aspects of career and technical education is being able to work with students from their freshman year through their senior year and seeing how they mature and grow through those 4 years of high school. Currently, she's serving the Department of Education as a Career Connections Program Specialist, where she leads initiatives around career literacy. So let's give a thumbs up welcome to Angela as she talks to us about the work at the state level that she's been doing with career literacy. So welcome, Angela.
Thank you very much for having me today. Give me just a moment to pull up my PowerPoint and hopefully everything works. So you should be seeing it from.
Looks great.
For career literacy. All right, excellent. So hello again. My name is Angela Hardy, and I am the Career Connections Program Specialist at the Arizona Department of Education. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about my introduction to the world of career literacy, provide examples of successful programs, along with ideas of how to integrate career literacy into the classroom. And finally, I'm going to introduce an incredible panel who will conclude our discussion of career literacy in Arizona. I started working at the Arizona Department of Education in the fall of 2019. And just a few weeks after starting with the ADE, I was pulled into a meeting with about 30 people who were discussing the barriers in implementation and opportunities presented by career literacy programs in Arizona schools. So I sat at my table hoping to remember names. I sat right next to Tammy Bonner that first day, I remember that. And also wondering, what is career literacy? So you've heard it called career awareness, career development, career exploration, career pathways, career readiness, probably a dozen more permutations. But regardless of the title, the purpose of any of these programs is to awaken students to the incredibly diverse and ever-evolving professional world. I was a high school teacher for many years, and one of my favorite questions to ask was, what do you want to be?
Grow up. I want to be. Hey, I never thought of that. Let me think about that. Whoa.
I want to be a teacher when I grow up.
Elementary teacher. I like little kids. A babysitter. A pastor. A dolphin trainer. A dental that eats bugs. A hair cutter.
A person who helps in charities.
I'm a cashier at Walmart. An author. Chapter books about mythical creatures and animals and things. I want to be a lawyer. Lawyer. Pilot. Pilot. And a dad. A pilot racer dad. Scientist. Scientist. Paleontologist. Mine for dinosaur bones and studies them. YouTuber. Movie star. A famous actor. Actor. On stage, on TV, on Disney Channel, or commercials. I gotta be a model.
I'll work it.
If I want a model, I'll just be a policeman. Police officer. I want the car chases. Catch bad guys. A superhero. Batman. Spider-Man.
I would like to go into the U.S. Army because my grandma, she loved the Army, but she never went into the service.
I want to be They're an African American gymnast. Gymnastic coach. I want to be a professional dancer. Dancer. Dance teacher. Ballerina. Professional soccer player. I have a shirt on right now that's from Barcelona. Soccer player. Basketball player. Basketball, football, or soccer player. Or baseball. I can never choose. I do not know. I'm still working on that. Maybe when I grow up, I'll pick. I already have a whole plan. Serve the Air Force for 20 years, become a businessman, make my own company for cars. I want to be a Pokemon trainer. I want to work at Target. I want a cake. I want to be a pop star, rock star, singer. I want to be a cook, but I don't really know how to actually cook. I want to be an artist. Painter. I want to be an artist that goes around painting walls. An artist and a video game maker. Video game designer. Video game. I want to be a filmmaker. Whatever my dad is.
Do you know what your dad is?
I'm not sure. I'll be a doctor. Doctor. A mermaid. A mermaid doctor. Heart surgeon, neurosurgeon, cardiologist, gynecologist, pediatrician, the kids doctor, pediatrician.
And why do you want to do that?
I want to be a doctor and then I can wear rainbow sweatpants.
I really want to be a nurse. Everyone says you have to be very good at science and math. I'm not really, but I still want to be one.
I want to be a pet doctor because I like helping animals. Pet vet. Veterinarian. Zoologist. Princess Fairy zookeeper.
How much do you think they get paid?
$29.
So one of my favorite answers to that question from one of my students came from this really sweet 14-year-old boy whose dream it was to become a professional baseball player. But you could tell his family had been discussing his plans with him because he told me that if being a professional baseball player didn't work out, he'd be a pilot for Air France. Only Air France, no other airline was acceptable. In the video, you may have caught the fact that these students were visualizing themselves working in careers they were already familiar with, being a cashier at Walmart or Target, a model, an actor, teacher, doctors, vet, sports star, policeman. And I can tell you that when I asked my high school students the same questions, regardless of whether they were 14 or 18, their answers showed just as little variety. And their lack of exposure to the breadth of the professional world severely hamstrings our graduating students. They view the future through a pinhole when they have an entire horizon to explore. Now, this one usually gives me a little trouble going on. All right, you should be seeing the next slide, yeah? Hopefully. All right.
Yes, Angela, we are.
Excellent. Okay, because it gets stuck in that video every time, so thank you. All right, so Arizona only graduates, and Bill talked about this, Arizona only graduates 78.8% of its high school students, and that's 10% below the US average. In 2019, approximately 117,000 youths between the ages of 16 and 24 weren't in school and they weren't working. And in 2020, that number nearly doubled. So now nearly 1 in 4 16 to 24-year-olds in Arizona can be considered opportunity youth. We all know the outcomes for students who drop out of high school present a serious uphill climb. Students without a high school diploma make $10,000 less per year than those with a high school diploma, and about $36,000 less than someone with a bachelor's degree on average. Students without a high school diploma have worse health outcomes, higher poverty rates, higher incarceration rates. One study by the National Dropout Prevention Center found that 82% of US prisoners are high school dropouts. When students in Arizona do graduate, approximately 53% enter 2- and 4-year degree programs. That's 20% less than the US average. 30% of these students will drop out of college in their first year. In the United States, 57% of students who are enrolled in a 2- to 4-year college degree program graduate with a degree, but in Arizona, only 27% will. And only 17% of today's 9th graders will have a bachelor degree by 2028, according to the Arizona Board of Regents. So these numbers have tremendous impacts on the future for Arizona. Education and economic growth go hand in hand, and where education lags, the economy follows. So can career literacy programs help? The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, it's OECD, conducts a test every 3 years in over 80 countries called the Program of International Student Assessment. The tests are nearly 400 questions long and are designed to assess the ability for students to apply their education to real-life situations and their preparation for adulthood. One section of the test asks students if they had participated in any career literacy activities or programs, focusing specifically on whether students had opportunities for internships, job shadowing or worksite visits, participating in job fairs, and speaking with a career advisor at school. Another section of the test asks students to rate the efficacy of school by asking questions such as, do you think school does little to prepare you for life? Do you think school is a waste of time? Do you think school is useful for jobs? And do you think school helps you to get a job? So an analysis of students' answers found a statistically significant relationship between participation in career literacy activities and a positive attitude towards school. For example, students who took part in internships were 20% less likely to agree with the statement that school does little to prepare you for life, and 66% less likely to agree with the statement that school is a waste of time. Students who had taken part in job fairs were nearly 2.5 times more likely to agree that schooling is useful for jobs, and 28% more likely to agree that school helps you to get a job. So career literacy programs help students bridge the gap between what they learn in the classroom and how they can apply those lessons to their working life. Greater engagement and attitudes towards schools can help kids on the cusp of dropping out or giving up motivation to continue and help them create goals to strive for. Another study I'd like to mention focused on students with disabilities. According to the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, among people with a disability, the highest employment rate was for those aged 25 to 34 at only 39%. That's over a 60% unemployment rate for people with disabilities. Young people with disabilities are less likely to enroll or complete post-secondary education and suffer lower employment than their non-disabled peers. Disabled women are less likely to work in high-skill or high-wage jobs than their male peers. So a pre-test, post-test analysis was performed on 3 different career literacy programs that were designed specifically to provide career and professional skills advice for young women with disabilities. One program, Career Connections, found that students had a range of improved outcomes, including more positive relationships with adults, an increased ability to advocate for themselves in difficult situations, increased participation in school and community activities, and more proactive communication skills. The second program, Girls at Work, had improved employment rates and improved enrollment in post-secondary education for its participants. And the last program, Post-School Achievement Through Higher Skills, PATHS, resulted in significant gains in autonomy for their participants. Finally, several studies were conducted by American student assistants with regard to student stress, career literacy opportunities, and outcomes from career literacy programs. Their studies show that half of middle school students said they were stressed about picking the right career, and 41% worried about how they would reach their goals. A study performed by the New Teacher Project found that the transition between elementary and middle school can be particularly difficult for some students. And they found an increase in disengagement during class that would continue to worsen throughout high school. In addition, the majority of students stated that their schoolwork was not engaging or worth their time. In contrast, those same middle school age children were most keen to learn about different careers. 87% were interested in matching their skills and interests to professional careers, and 85% were interested to learn about pathways to achieve those careers. Students involved with some type of career literacy have improved academic outcomes. A meta-analysis of over 45 studies on the impact of career literacy programs on educational outcomes found that 60% of those studies reported largely positive findings. They found that career literacy programs can help re-engage at-risk students. It improves school behavior, decreases disciplinary problems, and improves attendance. Students who had some exposure to career literacy programs had improved high school graduation rates, enrolled in more advanced courses, were more likely to pursue higher education and complete their degree or certification programs. So we know that career literacy programs help students understand the ties between their future careers and their current schooling. It increases their professional or soft skills and gives students confidence in navigating their professional world. But how do you integrate career literacy into an already busy schedule? So here's a few ways that other schools have gone about it. So some schools choose to fully incorporate career literacy into their curriculum. Bill talked about Minutemen High School. They're one of those. And that can look a number of ways. And I've got a couple examples here as well. So Hillcrest High School in Queens, New York divides its nearly 3,000 students into small learning communities that focus on specific career pathways. Each small learning community has a dedicated teacher leader and a school counselor, along with a dozen general education teachers. The small learning communities offer career-specific electives, opportunities for internships and job shadowing, and students can earn professional certificates as well. Symonds Middle School in San Jose, California have 2 career academies that their students can enroll in. The Health Career Academy immerses students in the diverse medical care career field. Students in this career academy are trained in CPR, stop the bleed, and first aid. They participate in medical themed projects, have guest speakers, and field trips as well. If the medical pathway doesn't appeal to some students, they can enroll in the alternate career pathway called the STEAM Career Academy. Students in this pathway are exposed to careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, as well as careers in music, art, and the culinary arts. Students in the STEAM Career Academy learn how to use Google Suite and Adobe Creative software. Finally, Laurel Elementary Magnet School of Innovation and Career Exploration in Brea, California, has built partnerships with local businesses from the fire department, police department, local restaurants, veterinarian offices, hotels, trash and waste companies, medical professionals, air conditioning, and technology leaders. Each classroom from kindergarten to 6th grade is paired with a business partner who then introduces students to their industry, coaches students in gaining new technology skills, provide field trips and classroom visits. And each year culminates in a career exploration showcase that allows students to show what they've learned through the year. Small learning communities or career academies can also be incorporated into the school as a weekly event. Similar to PEP assemblies, general classes can all be shortened and students can have a long period, 1 day each week, in which they're allowed to explore the careers that are tied to the general curriculum that they're engaged in. For example, a student who absolutely loves art might want to use this time to explore careers in the arts, or the teacher for these particular classes can have a preset career path that they prefer their students research. In either case, students could be exposed to the professional world each week. Career literacy can also be incorporated into the curriculum as an elective, similar to PE, art, or music. A dedicated elective teacher or counselor could have a group of students research a specific career pathway. The students could evaluate the education necessary to work in that career pathway, the types of jobs and tasks involved. They could discuss their findings with their peers and decide whether that is a pathway they can see themselves growing into. This way, students will be able to discuss careers and have exposure to the professional world. Career literacy can also be integrated through special events. Career days foster the relationship between schools and their business partners. Different businesses can come to the school, set up booths, and students can walk around from booth to booth and ask real professionals engaged in real work what it's like. On the other hand, career days can also be a day where students who have done extensive research on a specific career can display their work and answer questions. Field trips always leave a good impression. They're phenomenal tools for career literacy. A trip to the zoo can both be a biological exploration event and one in which students are asked to discover the different pathways to working at a zoo. Maybe interview someone who works at the zoo and get a sense of time and dedication necessary to work there. As we all know, sometimes going to a place physically just isn't possible. There's no bus available, there's no budget, you can't get permission slips back, there's an international pandemic. So virtual field trips and virtual job shadows are the next best thing. They still allow students to get a peek of what working is really like, and can be followed up with classroom activities to deepen understanding. Guest speakers were always my favorite people to have in the class because they're really phenomenal ambassadors for work. They come from a place of knowledge, can have a real connection with students in the class, form relationships with teachers that can then help students with job placements, internships, and job shadows as they grow. Career literacy can be incorporated into the weekly flow of a single classroom as well. Teachers can utilize whiteboards to ask quick questions. For example, if students are reading The Chocolate War, a teacher might ask them what skills they might learn from selling chocolate for a school fundraiser. He or she can then follow up with asking what careers those skills can be used in. A teacher can make every Friday Career Friday. On that day, students would have the opportunity to look at how different careers connect with what they're learning in class. For example, a math teacher could show students how architects utilize geometry, algebra, and calculus to not only design incredible looking buildings, but safe ones too. And what's great about Career Friday is that if a student wasn't interested in being an architect, there are so many careers that are involved in it, like construction and CAD modeling, welding, manufacturing, that they might find something they do like. Career literacy can be as simple as a take it out the door every day. Tell me a job that you could do with what we learned today. Or homework, research your career that connects with what we learned today. Career literacy doesn't have to be a burden or an extra task for teachers. It can simply be an extension of what they already do or twist on what they've already taught, or it can be how an entire school is run. In the first meeting I ever had for career literacy, I didn't know any of this. And fortunately for me, the members of the Arizona Department of Education's Career Literacy Committee knew a lot more about career literacy than I did. And with their help, the Arizona Department of Education crafted career literacy standards for students from kindergarten to 8th grade. In addition, they were able to gather some incredible resources for Arizona schools, and these resources can be used at any level of engagement. They allow quick connections with our partners in education, Arizona Curriculum Consortium, Arizona Business and Education Coalition, West MEC. And if you don't see yourself up here, you can always email me and I'll put your link right up there under community partners. They allow tools like Community Share and Educator Pro Connect, which help teachers and industry partners get together, quizzes and statistics on labor market data, scholarly articles, video series like STEM Pro Live, which allows teachers to bring professionals into their classroom virtually for students to interview. We've got interest inventories, full lesson plans, some glimpses into specific careers, construction careers, mining, IT, and cyber IT careers, aids to help teach students about financial literacy, opportunities for field trips like BizTown or simulations on EverFi. And we can even look at some of the career literacy programs in other states, along with a few other miscellaneous resources. When I was asked to speak here today, my first thought was that I really wasn't the person you should be talking to. I've never been in a classroom physically teaching career literacy. I've never taught middle school or elementary school. So my experience has been rather limited. So fortunately, there's a lot of experts out there. So in my panic, I went to them. And I got really, really lucky that the experts wanted to be here today. So we're going to go to breakout very soon. When you come back from your breakout, you'll be introduced to a panel of career literacy experts. These professionals have dedicated themselves to bringing career literacy to all levels of education. They had organizations in Arizona and California and have helped get comprehensive and expansive career literacy curriculums, teacher trainings, and student experiences. When you're in your breakout rooms, if you could take a moment to jot down a few questions you'd like to ask them, and when we get back, you can place those questions in the chat. And that's all for me. So thank you for your time and attention.
Well, thank you, Angela. We did bring the right person to the room, so you have done a wonderful job, and you've given some boots on the ground ideas that we can take back as we think about how we begin to work with students with career literacy. You know, I was struck by as we think about career literacy is larger than a CTE curriculum. It is curriculum for all teachers. And so as you go to breakout groups, I would love to hear additional ideas, as Angela has talked about some of these, but also how do we share the good work that's been done with all teachers across the state, because it really is available for all students. So again, you'll be thrown into some breakout groups, have rich dialogue. We'll come back, do some reporting out, and then we will make sure we've carved out enough time for our panelists to talk a little bit about the things that they've done and the resources that they have. So thank you, Patrick, for taking us to our breakout groups. We look forward to hearing your discussions.
Whoosh.
I have to say, what stood out to me is there's some great exemplary programs in Arizona. I'm really thrilled that we're going to have the opportunity to talk about some of that as we move on. And so it was good to have that information to show all the resources that these middle school programs in particularly are alive and thriving around the country as well as in Arizona.
I thought it was great having that, you know, sometimes there's teachers have just so much going on their plate, having one sheet where they can kind of select like, oh, let me just kind of peruse and see what's going on here so I can get some ideas. It's a great opportunity. I like the resource sheet, Arizona at Work, all those links, those live links. As a career coach, something I definitely want to kind of get a copy of, and if I can kind of say like, hey, I think this would be a good fit for your class or your program specifically, it would kind of help the teachers versus just sending them everything, like something specific to their cohort, like the medical programs versus the trades program. So I thought that was pretty cool. Is there any ideas, anything that you guys would suggest? Like, I think, you know, I heard about this is what's going on, and it's something that maybe we could put together a sheet as well.
You know what we found happened, especially over COVID, and as our major target is middle schools at ABEC. And what we found for years, we did the program where we go into the schools, we'd work with the staff, we'd work with principal, we'd bring business partners in, and it might even take a year to develop the program before we could actually even implement it. What COVID did for us, though, is, and I'll use this term very loosely, but we came to find out that we think a lot of teachers in schools are really looking for the plug and play. You know, show us how to do it. Show us, give us, who comes in when, what's the curriculum, what's the professional development, what's the platform I'm going to be on, and how do I learn how to use it? You know, how are you introducing me, and where can I connect with my business partners? And so we found that they really were desperate, and you're going to hear a lot about the UMA program in the panel discussion, but they were really desperate for us to just help them do it. You know, we don't have time to figure it out. We don't have time. You know, as a teacher, I have so much to do in my classroom. Now you want me to go out and research this and find this and do that and then pull it all together in this really wonderful, cohesive career exploration program, when I don't even have a background in how to do that. In a lot of instances, and the teacher saying that. So we found that they really were anxious for us to really outline what that could look like for them. Here's what you might do. Here's when you might do it. Here's who might help you do it.
Mm. I'd like to piggyback off of that. We've really seen, right, that as our teachers' stress levels increase, their ability to like think outside the box or do creative projects has really decreased. And part of us helping them has just been like, do this, it's okay, right? And I'm really hoping that as those stress levels come down, that the other end comes up. But I was a teacher for 17 years, so this is a rather new position for me. And one of the things that I really found is that, one, teachers know teachers. We're like this weird insular group that, you know, like don't know people with real jobs. And so like finding a community partner was like, I went to the grocery store on the way home. Does that count? You know, and that kind of thing. Or, you know, that one teacher who married that one guy who was an engineer. So that's who we're getting, right? So it just became this thing. And I think really taking the district's community partners and having events where teachers can talk to them and connect with them and network and have a good understanding of the businesses, small or large, that are in our community, and that, you know, we have a person we can call and help us connect is extremely valuable. And that, like, you're so busy as a teacher, you don't always know who to call, right? And I just feel like connecting with community partners is something that, had I continued in the classroom, might have been really good next steps. But again, I taught for 17 years, right? So like if you're talking about, you know, a teacher who's maybe in their third, fourth, fifth year, and they're still talking about like, all right, I know how to teach my content, understanding how they're then going to like push out to community leaders, like they really need someone to help them.
That's absolutely what we found in doing it. I think teachers even want to do a lot of this, but if we leave it to them to really develop the program in the classroom, they don't even have the time, with everything else that they have to do. And now you want me to go out and research curriculum and learn how to use it and how to deliver it. And, oh, let's get on Pipeline AZ. That'd be easy to do. And all of a sudden, now I need to learn, everybody needs an ECAP, and well, oh gosh, that sounds great, but what is an ECAP? And where am I going to have tools to help students build out an ECAP? So, we have found that kind of packaging it up rather than saying, here's the resources, they're bountiful, go get them. Didn't work as well as saying, hey, let us talk to you a little bit and put this together for you.
Deb, thank you for your comments. And Abigail, thank you for joining us. America, I hope you're taking good notes, because I'm going to call on you when we come back because of the rich dialogue here. So definitely. Thanks, everyone.
Judy, did you have a comment?
I wanted to just say yes to everything that all of you have said so far. I was part of the Career Pathways movement back in the 90s, the late 90s. And it lasted for several years and then kind of faded away and has come back to a little bit, to a little degree. But everything that is currently being said was the same back then. And Deb, you mentioned something about a package. Teachers need the resources. And if they can come in, can be put in a package, so to speak, so that they don't have to go out and look here, there, and yonder and read through and determine what is the best thing. That, and I think contact with people, other teachers that are doing different kinds of work. But I applaud this coming back the way it is, and certainly am behind Angela 100% as she takes our leadership from the state.
I want to just piggyback what everybody was saying. We've just been meeting West MEC with Mark Perna to kind of discuss how we're going to implement like our career trees for our teachers. And as a career coaches, we're like, we got to take a step back. Our teachers know their industry. They know their content. They're amazing at that. You cannot assume a person knows how to do resume interview style. Because they got a job doesn't mean sometimes you can squeeze through an interview, doesn't necessarily mean you can give those knowledge and skills to another person because you got through as the best candidate. You know what I mean? Yes, you're a contact expert. That's awesome. So I tell them, I was like, we need to provide them either a lesson plan or PD where we train them to then facilitate that information. We didn't just say, hey, you're a math teacher, you know math. You provided them the content so they could teach that. And I think that is absolutely important for our teachers. We can't expect them to know career literacy unless we teach them career literacy. And I love this plug and play. Make it easy for them. Here's your objective. Here's the outcomes. Here's the discussion points. 2-3 years down the road, it's going to be very easy for the teacher to kind of make connections, maybe having those partners, and it's going to be a lot easier than versus just saying, here's the information you need to facilitate, good luck, and then think that that student is going to get the best from them. They know their content really well, but this is not something, and I think a lot of people just assume it's easy to do, easy to give those skills. Resume, behavioral style questions, how do you answer those? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of ways that we can support our teachers, and I love this concept of giving them a package of knowledge and making that part of their PDs on a consistent basis. You know what I mean? We want our students to learn over the years. We can't just assume the teacher would get it one and done and they're good
Absolutely.
to go.
And I want to throw in that, you know, the business partners really, really want to be in the classroom. They really want to be helping teachers, but they don't know where you are either. So,
Yeah.
you know, that idea that I don't know where the business partner is, but, you know, they might even call a school and get the secretary or the, you know, somebody on the phone who doesn't have a clue who they should talk to either, or maybe don't even know that some of these things are going on. And so they're like, yeah, we don't know, goodbye. And they're like, well, you know, I tried, but I couldn't get to the right people. And our business partners think that too. You know, we really want to come in. We really want to help schools. We want to help teachers. We can do a lot of, you know, we can come in and teach what we're looking for in a resume. We can teach what we're looking for in a job interview. You know, and you don't even have to go out and learn all of that. You know, in fact, a lot of the intern and externships we're doing with teachers right now with some of our partners, the teachers walk away going, oh my gosh, now I have some valuable skills in addition, you know, for my own self and my own self-improvement, let alone what I can teach to my students. And that person is willing to come into my classroom and do this presentation. So it's really a great way also, you know, the work that we're trying to do in middle schools and connecting teachers to those partners who could actually come in on Zoom or in person or however that might work now and deliver that instruction and information.
I really appreciate that very much. I think, you know, connecting community partners with schools and all those things are really important. And, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking of like, you know, because we're an elementary district, right? And so many times I dealt with kids and they're like, I want to be a veterinarian. You're like, great. What does a veterinarian do? They're like, well, they really like animals. They have no concept of what a day-to-day, like I sit at my computer and type for 90% of the day. It's awesome. Right. But they don't really have that understanding of like, what do you actually do? And just starting from that like younger group of students all the way into like logistically talking to a high school about like, you're actually going to have to pass math. So, sorry,
we're going to be, that's okay. We're going to be cutting like 4 seconds.
All right, well, thank you for returning. Thank you for the rich dialogue that was occurring in the different groups. I certainly appreciate those designated group leaders and the ones that I appointed once I got in there. So I appreciate your participation. I just can't say enough about the incredible dialogue that's been occurring. As you've seen, we are recording this event, so we'll make sure that that will be available to you, as well as the presenters will have their PDF version of their presentation that we will make sure we get out to you. Those of you that have gone through that registration process, we will have your email and get that out in the next day or so. So let's just take a quick pulse of some of the dialogue that occurred in your groups. And so I put America on the spot, but the rich dialogue that was going on there. America, why don't you share a little bit about the dialogue that you were a part of in your breakout group?
So we had an awesome group. We definitely talked about the importance of having this information possibly provided to the teachers in a way so we don't give them more work, but provide maybe a package, a plug and play, like this is where you can implement this in this part of your program. This is where you can bring this discussion in there. Maybe have partnerships with our community and, you know, employers so that they can take part of telling students what they want, in addition to also telling the teacher what that employer wants. So it's providing an outline for the teacher where we assume the teachers, because they got a job, that they know how to get a job. You know what I mean? They can impart that information. They're content experts in their content, and career literacy is a different content. And we need to be able to provide them either through PDs or training so that they can be better equipped to help their students. It's kind of, we had a lot going on, but we were talking about more of it, making it easier for the teachers by providing them the information in a way that it's digestible for them to give that in addition to get them training.
Excellent summary. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Chris Guy, I know that you were taking some notes in your group. Just a quick summary.
So we were talking to my group, Mike New at Buckeye was talking about how they have a program for juniors, and it's called Future Ready, and it's kind of that preparation, and it's evolved over the years. I used to work in that district, so I've kind of seen it evolve. And just in our group, the other Lucy was asking, is there pushback from other departments, which, yes, there are pushback from fine arts, our honors teachers, that kind of stuff, but it really has to be a full district, full campus buy-in that we're getting our students career ready. And so, I use the example of a dance teacher. If the dance teacher has this pushback of, well, I don't want to lose my students to this program, well, then you have to turn around and say, well, then how are you preparing those students to be career ready? If they're not going to be in this program, then what are you doing to help them career ready? I made a comment too, like as a counselor, if we make our students career ready, college falls in with that, for those students that need to go to college. So I know we don't, because society is still stuck on a bachelor's degree and that kind of stuff. But if we focus that students are career ready, everything else is going to fall in line with the career they are going to. And we also talked about, sharing all of these great ideas. Like it would be great if Mike could share this Future Ready program with everybody, but we don't really have a centralized location to share it. CTE teachers talk about it in some places, and counselors talk about it in some places, and administrators talk about it in some places. And we know there's smart people in this group today that are talking about it, but there's not any place where everybody can go to the same place, and doing it 5 or 6 different times is exhaustive, and it's just going to wear out. So I know that was really long, Joel, but yeah, that's what we talked about.
Well, meaningful dialogue. And I know that Angela is taking copious notes, because that's some of the feedback that she's received elsewhere. So thank you. And then Speranta, what were just a couple things that you talked about in your group? I appreciate you stepping up and taking that role.
Thank you. So echoing what has been said already, we also discussed the fact that students are primarily in academic classes. They have 4 academic classes a day, whether they are in middle school or in high school. So we discussed the importance of bringing in those academic teachers and creating that school culture. The academic teachers have to be highly involved in understanding how their academic core subject leads to careers and those connections. And it is to their benefit, because they want to sell, quote unquote, their subject to their students and make their subject very relevant to their students when they're teaching that high stakes subjects of mathematics and reading, writing, and all of those subjects that the school is measured on, and those that high accountability for those academic course subjects.
All right, well, thank you. Excellent. I appreciate. And the chat, there's many things occurring in the chat. We'll make sure we capture those thoughts as we summarize today. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Angela. I know that she's got some wonderful panelists to introduce, and then we'll jump into a panel discussion. So thank you.
All right, so just bear with me one more time while I share my screen, and then I'll get you to the panel as soon as I can. So we are really lucky to have a bunch of people here from professional organizations that deal with career literacy, who've been involved very deeply with career literacy and incorporating it into schools. So I'm going to tell you about their programs and the person here on the panel to represent them. So in alphabetical order, Beable, World of Work, is a comprehensive career development solution that focuses on developing students' self-awareness, providing personalized career exposure, and building essential employability skills for the ever-changing landscape of the global economy. By creating relevance to the real world and enabling students to map their educational goals to their possible future selves, Be Able WOW puts students on the path to the right post-secondary education for them and ultimately gainful employment. Importantly, Be Able is also the only comprehensive solution that enables and empowers students to gain exposure to careers that fit with their strengths, interests, and values, while simultaneously building the literacy and employability skills to succeed at those careers. Be Able WOW is the first and only system that so directly connects literacy growth to career goals and post-graduation success. And here to talk about Be Able is Ed Hidalgo. Ed currently serves as the Chief Innovation and Engagement Officer for the Cajon Valley Union School District. His focus is on advancing the mission of developing happy kids and adults living in healthy relationships that are on a path to gainful employment. The Center for the Future of Arizona, Possible Futures. As part of their work assisting middle schools with implementation of quality career literacy programs, CFA provides a high-quality curriculum resource. Possible Futures, a nationally recognized career literacy curriculum, provides cutting-edge instruction for middle grade students to develop a college and career-ready identity, especially in high-demand, high-wage, and high-growth industries. As part of the program, students learn to become their own best advocate. Their curriculum meets Arizona middle grade's career literacy standards and supports the ECAP process. In-person, online, and hybrid options are available. Today, we're lucky to have Cindy Irwin on our panel. Cindy joined the Center for the Future of Arizona in 2018 as the Director for College and Career Pathways. Cindy's responsible for working with education and industry partners to ensure that many more young people complete high school and earn a post-secondary credential with labor market value, launching them into initial careers while ensuring that they have the foundation necessary for future education. Edge Factor empowers communities to tackle workforce development, inspire students, reach parents, and build relationships between local companies, schools, and families. They equip K-12 and post-secondary schools, businesses, and workforce development organizations and families with e-learning tools to showcase industries and careers, teach soft skills, show how STEAM comes alive in the real world, and highlight local training and career opportunities. Here to represent Edge Factor is Larissa Hoffman. Larissa is passionate about using the power of storytelling to promote CTE and help students and job seekers explore career pathways. As the Vice President of Edge Factor, Larissa Hoffman works closely with schools and communities to equip educators with career exploration tools and communities to tackle workforce development. Junior Achievement is here. For 65 years, Junior Achievement of Arizona has prepared millions of students to succeed in work and life. The nonprofit organization gives kids K-12 the knowledge and skills they need to manage their money, make smart academic and career and economic choices. At the foundation of all Junior Achievement programs is teaching students how to think critically. Delivered by 8,000 businesses and community volunteer mentors, JA's hands-on, age-appropriate programs focus on 3 key areas: work and career readiness, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy. Despite massive disruptions in education, JA will serve more than 60,000 students this school year, reaching them wherever and however they are learning today. JA partners with more than 400 schools in the state and aims to be a turnkey solution for educators and an extension of the teaching team. Ann Landers is here to talk to you about Junior Achievement. She is a Vice President of Strategic Impact at Junior Achievement of Arizona. Then we have the Arizona Business and Education Coalition. ABEC's primary focus or project is the well-established, sustainable, award-winning Career Exploration and Development Project, which provides the foundation and proven strategy to engage business and education in creating meaningful career exploration programs. The overall goal is to assist students grades 6 to 14 in making informed decisions regarding their education and to understand critical employability skills or credentials needed to succeed in the workforce. The ABEC project is closely aligned with the Education Progress Meter goals of Achieve 60AZ, integrates the career literacy standards, and emphasizes partnerships between industries and education to align current and future workforce needs to career exploration opportunities. The Yuma ABEC project is a collaboration between the Southwest Technical Education District of Yuma, the Yuma County School Superintendent's Office, and the Arizona Business and Education Coalition. The 3 entities share the costs as well as guidance for the project. General direction for the project is provided by a leadership team composed of education, business, and community leaders. And we're lucky today to have Kevin Imes, the superintendent at Southwest Technical Education District of Yuma, Tom Tyree, the Yuma County School Superintendent, and Deb Rader, the Vice President for Program Development at Arizona Business and Education Coalition here today. If you guys have questions for them, please place them in the chat. Here's everybody's faces, hopefully. Ooh, there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and you guys will have access to our panel. Thank you all for being here today. So to get us started, I'll just say a question that I have. And one of the things that came up in our group is how to change or break the paradigm of general curriculum being king, how to show teachers or how to support teachers in integrating career literacy into their classrooms. And I'll ask that of Ed Hidalgo. Go ahead.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you to the esteemed panelists that are joining here today. And I think from our own personal experience in the work of deploying our theory of change, it starts with actually helping the teachers put the mask on for themselves of career development. Many adults have never experienced what career development is. They've never had the opportunity to explore what their unique strengths, interests, or workplace values are. So we often use the airline analogy. You know, if the airplane loses cabin pressure, apply a small mask will fall from the ceiling, apply it to yourself first, and then apply it to others. We take the adults through the process of exploring their strengths, interests, and values first, and then we teach them how to apply that mask to their students. And because interests have the highest correlation to career success, performance, and income of any of the personality measures, we ensure that we ground in interests, and for that reason, we ground in the Holland framework. So I say, if you're going to start deploying career development in your schools, you got to start with the adults first and give them the gift, and then give it to the students. And that's what our technology supports.
You guys are welcome to follow up with comments and stuff, you know, if you want to.
I think one of the things, Larissa, from Edge Factor that we learned a number of years ago is that if you can solve somebody's problem, you'll be able to see that they're able to adopt the tools that you're providing them. And I'll never forget, I've been with Edge Factor now for 9 years, and I was that high school student that really had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Graduated, kind of fell into working at a local TV station, and then Jeremy Boat, the founder of Edge Factor, actually through a wrong phone number, we connected and we launched Edge Factor about 9.5 years ago now. And I was presenting early on to a group of math teachers, and I was talking to them about, you know, how awesome all these careers are and how exciting it is for them to be able to share these tools with their students. And somebody put up their hand and said, you know, I have no idea how I would be able to use this in my math classroom. And so one of the things that we have learned and that we've been able to create tools to help bridge that gap is to be able to say, what are the key questions that a student would have in a math classroom that an educator is struggling with? And of course, the same question always comes up: when in real life am I ever going to use what you're teaching me? Algebra, trigonometry, who cares, right? And so we've been able to create content that answers that question: how does math come alive in the real world through the context of career exploration? And I think if we can look at the different types of educators at a school and say, what lens are they teaching with? And how can we help solve their problems so that we're not actually adding work to their plates, but we're actually finding ways to engage their students while really meeting the need of that educator and helping the student move forward in their learning requirements.
I'll jump on that too, and some of our partners are setting here and what we've been trying to do at the middle school grades. And I think one of the most important things that we've learned during this time frame, though, is we just can't give teachers a menu of things and say, go at it and good luck with this. But how do we actually frame a program for them and show them where all of these different tools and great programs could fit in together, because if they have to go out there and kind of figure it all out, I think it's going to, we know it's too difficult. And especially, like I say, during the time of COVID, working with the Center for the Future of Arizona, Cindy's here on curriculum and professional development. And then, reaching out to platforms such as Pipeline AZ, and how can we get people to using that, and introducing how you would use an ECAP and how important it is for students to have this roadmap as they transition into high school. So with that, I'd really like to see some of our UMA folks jump in and talk about how we really work to engage teachers and how to bring these tools to the teachers, and how they can see how to integrate them not only in career exploration, but as you just talked about, how do we integrate it in our math class, in our English class, in our PE class?
Okay. Well, I have a couple thoughts, I guess, about that, and I may even be repeating myself a little bit from the breakout we just had. But first of all, I think one of the things that we need to do is understand and recognize the importance of starting to develop or implement at an earlier age than what we've traditionally done. Yeah, it's pretty much been in the domain of secondary or high school curriculum. I know that there are some districts that have done some things with career exploration wheels in some districts in the state of Arizona, but there's not a generally recognized focus on career exploration taking place earlier. And along the line with that is the fact that there aren't a whole lot of resources that are then allocated to that. And I certainly, as I just said a moment ago to our group, I'm not looking to take away the meager resources that exist maybe sometimes anyway with what we already have. But you've got to understand that at least in the beginning with the middle school, that's the pipeline for everything else that comes after. And so I think there's a lot that we can do in that area. The other thing is that we kind of talk about academics, and then we talk about career exploration and CTE like they're two separate things. And I guess the drum that I keep beating is that the teachers in the core academic areas, as I think's been alluded to or said specifically already, they need to be doing those things to create the engagement that we need in our students. So regardless if I'm the math teacher, regardless, or the science teacher, whether I'm very concerned about careers at that point in time, but rather teach my subject matter. If I want kids to learn and really be engaged, I need to figure out a way to do it in a more relevant, hands-on way. And this is the way to do it. The example I would cite, or at least an example, is that we have a middle school science teacher in one of our middle schools that uses ag to teach science. And our ag people would tell you ag is science. And so what she does is she teaches her science in a way that really engages students, and they do ag projects, including having put together a hydroponics growing experience in the class where kids are actually growing things and using lights and everything else. Those kids are engaged. Kevin?
Sure. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Angela. Angela, I just want to kind of go back to the question that you asked, is how do we break the paradigm from the priority of academics into career literacy? I think that was the original question that you had asked too. And so what we're designing at UMA ABEC are all those things for which teachers, core academic teachers, can integrate real world applications. And I think that was alluded to a little bit by Tom and to Deb. But I'd like to take just a little bit different approach. I've been in education for 34 years. My background in education comes from curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And whenever we're developing a curriculum, we always do that backwards design. Where do we want students to be at the end of the lesson, at the end of the program, at the end of the grade? We always start with the backwards design. We know our 5-year-old kindergartners are going to get a job. Everybody has a job. What are we going to do to work backwards in order for them to be able to be ready for a job? So we've built our educational system on core, you even call it core academic subjects rather than career literacy and career development. because everybody's going to get a job. That's where we're going to end up. So how do we build our educational system in order to maximize the goal of everybody having a job and becoming productive citizens in our community? And so I think that's, to answer your question, how do we get out of that paradigm? We start to redesign the paradigm for what education and what our objectives should be at the end of a K-12, K-14, K-20, whatever that is.
I'd like to just interject that I think part of the issue or the challenge is how do you choreograph the dance between core curriculum and anything you want to call an elective? How do you choreograph that dance between those competing subject areas and make both partners feel as if they're equally important? What I experience here in Little Bitty Pinon is we have a campus with different buildings, and each building is its own fiefdom, and each administration is very parochial about what is allowed to enter into their little fiefdom. And then when you try to do some sort of collaboration, like, is it possible to do this career exploration thing Lieutenant Colonel Boyd is teaching, and maybe have the middle school have a taste of that and have some sort of input to that before the children cross over to the great big school? But because of the personalities and I'm doing it my way, I'm doing it my way, the dance never happens. It takes something higher. It's going to have to come from the district level or even higher than that, that says, almost in a directive, that you need to trust me that if you take this path, if you take this approach, everybody wins.
So, Robert, there's a couple of things that we're trying to change the flat tire while the car's going down the road. And it's impossible to be able to do that. So we need to stop the car. We're at a pivotal point right now at this, standing on the edge of a paradigm shift, especially with the pandemic. And we've almost stopped the car in order to be able to change the wheel. So we have to take advantage of environmental, situational types of things. But in order for change to occur, we can do two things, as you mentioned, top down or bottom up. We've been all taught one way of instruction, just like we're teaching our students to think academics come first rather than career literacy and career exploration and talent development come first. We need to start from the bottom up. We've trained our teachers in a certain way. Now we need to retrain our teachers or train them when they're starting to develop their craft as to why career literacy is so important. It'll be a coasting car, but at least we'll have a better chance rather than that car going 60 miles an hour to switch that flat tire out.
Yeah, what resonated with me at the very beginning of this session was the slide that talked to the piece that in February 2020, the system was not working, and then COVID happened. And now we think we want to return to a system that was not working, when here we have an opportunity to literally change the system, because it's like an Etch-a-Sketch and you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, Robert, thank you for those. I think we've just now got a topic for the next year's think tank, so we appreciate that. So thank you for your insight. Angela, another question that you might have for the panelists as we take the next few minutes?
Of course. I would like to talk about how we engage effectively with underserved communities. Larissa, could you speak to that?
Sure. I mean, there's another topic, Joel. You could have a whole webinar just on that question. One of the ways that Edge Factor has really built our foundation on is being able to tap into the power of storytelling. So don't tell somebody, show them, right? And one of the things that we've done, for instance, over the last year, one of the big focuses that we had, because we've created almost 1,400 new videos in the last 11 months. I've got a team heading to Arizona again in May to film more content with local companies. But being able to showcase stories of people who are in positions, who have launched rewarding careers, who have overcome obstacles in their lives, and then being able to take that content and put it in front of students to say, hey, this person who looks a lot like you has overcome challenges, has launched a rewarding training and career pathway, and begin to help them see themselves in that story as well. And so one of the things that we did over the last year, as we've been creating all of this content, is really have a special focus on Indigenous community members, showcasing Indigenous tradespeople that have launched careers and being able to share that content. I would say females as well, maybe not an underserved per se, but just really being able to showcase women in non-traditional pathways and helping young women to have access to that content. In fact, every 2 months, we've got a new free toolkit. March was International Women's Month. So in March and April, we had a ton of content that we had made available for free for everyone in a Women in Skilled Trades toolkit. May and June is all about Indigenous. And then we've got a ton of content with, African Americans, et cetera. The list goes on. But using the power of storytelling, when you can feel like you can relate to somebody, you can see how you can emulate the pathway that they've taken.
That's awesome. I wanted to talk to Anne really quick about junior achievement and how you guys interact with schools. How do you, I mean, I know COVID has presented a huge challenge and you guys seem to have flourished in this environment. How did you do that?
Yeah, I'll just add on to Larissa, because I think she hit the nail on the head about helping students imagine what's possible for them. And somebody commented earlier about students who may dream about working at Walmart because that's what they've seen. That's why we have so many volunteers incorporated into what we do, because when somebody goes into their classroom and talks about how it was possible for them, and they look like a student, or they have a similar background to that student or similar life experiences, suddenly that light bulb turns on and the students imagine what's possible. Or they come to our facility and they run JA BizTown for the day, and they happen to come from under-resourced school, and they come here and they may have gotten one job, but they see what the CEO of the shop next to them does. And I've literally heard students say, I could do that. And walking in that day, they didn't have that belief in themselves. So it's not just giving them the skills through all these career literacy programs, it's also helping them attach the belief in themselves to that. And I think that's kind of the magic behind their future success. So that's what we do here at Junior Achievement is that career and work readiness. It's helping the skills that they need to be able to succeed kindergarten through 12th grade. Tom, going back to your comment about elementary, we have a lot of data at a national level that supports the fact that students really start imagining their careers at a really young age. That's why BizTown's for 4th graders, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, because they still imagine, they'll attach to that imagination, and then they're building that foundation forever. So we partner with schools in the classroom on our simulations. Right now through virtually, we're beaming into classrooms, we're beaming into homes, we're bringing volunteers that look like our students on the screens and talking with students as they're often holding their siblings or helping do other things while they're at home, and they're being able to imagine what's possible for them despite what's going on in their current life and in the influx of education and all the things that are surrounding them. So is that what you're looking for, Angela?
Yes. Really quick, Cindy, can you tell me how you have confronted the challenge of virtual instruction and how you've convinced teachers to incorporate career literacy?
Sure, absolutely. And I'll just second just about everything everyone on this panel has said. And as we have seen in our early college pathways work, going back to Angela, the video you shared about all those little students saying what they would like to be when they grow up. The one that struck me too was the young man who said, what my dad does. And how many of our students only know what their dad does, what their mom does, maybe what somebody close in their family does. So many opportunities they're not aware of. And then too, opportunities within their local community and within Arizona that they're not aware of. So what we have done was really try to use this nationally recognized curriculum we're able to bring to Arizona to help teachers and then subsequently students understand the opportunities that are out there and understand, what does a radiologist technician do? What does a cybersecurity analyst do? How can we expect our teachers to know those things? So through really utilizing great hands-on curriculum, and Ed, back to your point, coupling that with student interest, to our work with ABEC, coupling that with industry connections and then experiences like Anne talked about with JA, Larissa, the videos then that show, real life experience with students, that then students can really see opportunities and begin to make decisions for themselves. And those decisions in middle grades then to really look at what are my high school options and make decisions about those options early. And I'll say that we've been implementing Possible Futures for about the last 3 years with a number of schools. It's grown by leaps and bounds. And last year we pivoted quite a bit, right? All of a sudden, all of our teachers were at home trying to figure out how to teach students. So we also pivoted really quickly, providing teachers support virtually, adapting the curriculum through a very significant and generous grant through Gear Up. We're actually developing or transitioning this curriculum to online hybrid curriculum that can be utilized in a variety of ways. We're adapting our professional development to deliver that differently. We've partnered with the Curriculum Consortium this year, which the CTE Curriculum Consortium, which we're thrilled about because that's going to enable us to scale the curriculum and support across the state. And then I will conclude by just seconding Deb's comment about none of this can really work well without a strategy. And Kevin, to your point too, backwards mapping and a real strategy and commitment from a school around career literacy. And then I think that's how you can pull together your academic and your elective teachers around a strategy and a commitment around career literacy for middle grades and then moving on to high school, because it is going to take more than one teacher in a school to really reach all students and do a good job with this.
Well, thank you for your time. And Angela, I'll give you just a moment, but panelists, we appreciated your expertise and your insight in giving us some ideas. So Angela, I'll turn it back to you before we close, and then I've got a couple closing comments.
I know I've used too much time. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for being here. In my PowerPoint, your contact information is in the end. So if anybody listening, if you had a question that wasn't addressed, or you're like, hey, I want to know more about this, it's the last slide of my PowerPoint, and you'll have everybody's contact information. So you can further explore their offerings and how they incorporate themselves into schools and work with teachers to really build that, that buy-in from teachers that this is important, because I think nothing happens without that. So I just want to say thank you.
And thank you, Angela. Thank you, Bill Symonds, for your good work and the information you've given us, all the group leaders who have shared out, as well as the industry experts that have joined us today. So I will capture all the links from the chat. If you've shared those things, we'll include the links. Other things, if you would like to message me in the chat privately, your email, I will ensure that you're included all of these things. We think we have them all, but I don't want to miss out on anyone. So we'll make sure we do that. You'll notice in the chat as we finish the day an evaluation. It's a think tank eval, it's a bit.ly. And next year's topics are helped to determined by your feedback today. We've got a couple ideas of things that we would like to do next year as we think about the legislative priorities across our state, both at the national level as well as the state level. I know we will be working with some of the CTED superintendents across the state to do that. And then we're also looking at, we will be providing a topic in November on the importance of inclusion, access, equity, and diversity in education as a whole, and what that looks like. So that will be our November topic. Stay tuned for opportunities to participate in those. But on behalf of people across the state, I would thank you for your time. If you would like to stay on and ask some questions as panelists are able to share their time, would appreciate that if you'd like to ask any additional questions. But please take the time to complete the evaluation so that we can continue to meet your needs as we think about virtual or physical, or how we provide breakfast over the virtual environment going forward. So we appreciate your time today, and know that you have other things to get to. So thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
Bill, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So Bill, I think one of the, Ann Weisner from Agua Fria was asking if